Alok, you're live, Alok.
Right. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Alok from Orientbell Tiles, and with me is Sonali Bhagwati. Sonali needs no introduction as the president of DPA and a fairly active member. You have seen her in many forums, in many occasions. I think I'm so thrilled that she has agreed to give us time and kick off this session. Welcome, Sonali. Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. No, it's a pleasure. And I think we want the session to be much more than architecture. I'm very keen to know about the person, the force, the judgment
Alok,
behind
Robin here. Just wait for a minute, Alok.
Okay.
Just wait for a minute. Before. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be.
Yeah, Alok, you can go on. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. After that glitch, we got it right, but we can continue. So, as I was saying, that my effort is to understand the person, the leader behind all those wonderful work that we see everywhere, and that's what I'm going to try and unearth. I always believe that the formative years have a significant impact on the kind of work you do in your adult life. So, Sonali has had two illustrious figures, at least two that I know of, in the public domain. First of all, Justice Bhagwati, who most of us would know as the Chief Justice of India. I mean, some of his rulings on public interest litigation were really amazing. As well as Jagdish Bhagwati, who gave me many sleepless nights with his notes on economics. How was it to live with these two gents, Sonali, and how has the early childhood impacted your work? The memories of childhood and growing up was seeing my father bravely giving up a life of luxury in order to follow his dreams and bringing justice to the doorstep of the poor. He truly followed philosophy of work is worship. These memories have really influenced me, tremendously for the rest of my life because I saw that what he wanted, he was so focused, and it was not what you did, but it was how you did things, how passionately you did things, and that is the lasting, impression and the memory that I've always carried with me. Uh, so I think it was not just something that influences design. I think it is something that has influenced my life, my attitude, and my focus. So that's what I think has been my growing up formative years. Wow, that's amazing. So if I were to, take it to any of your projects, uh, uh, share an example of what you would do sheerly driven by passion and something which perhaps nobody else would notice. Uh, uh, that brings alive this passion, this focus, this quest for excellence in a way. I wouldn't say there's one project because I have always believed that every project that you do is the best that it could be, and the best that you could make it. So I think unless every project has that passion that you have, it's no good. I think even the best of projects become nothing without the passion. So I would not say there is one project. I would say every project is a work of passion. It's a work of a drive. So I think that's what it is. You can't look at. I think even the smallest, even the littlest, probably piece of furniture that one has designed, or it could be something at an urban level. It is not the scale. It's the attitude towards every project. Wow, wow. Okay, that's really inspiring. Uh, and if I were to look at your career in the last 30 years, you've had a dream run, or at least a run that I would have been proud to achieve. You have been featured in magazines, you've got awards. So, what keeps you going now? And what excites you? What still inspires you? Uh, you know, Learning is a continuous process.
there is no stoppage to, like, I have finished learning. If you do that, you're going to die that day. I mean, if you are living, if you want to grow, you have to keep growing, you have to keep changing, you have to keep moving. And the day you stop moving, you're finished. So that's what keeps you excited. There is 100 opportunities in life every single day. It is your job to see that you seize those opportunities, you see the possibilities that you can do things, and you have to grab them. You have to continuously be on your toes, looking out, looking around you, looking at the younger people, looking at the Gen Next. What are they doing? What are their ideas? Because they are the ones who keep you young. They are the ones who keep you going. And they are your inspiration. The wisdom comes from your seniors, but the youth, vitality, and the zest to keep growing and moving comes from the youth. And you should always surround yourself by both these people to keep the balance and to keep yourself from not aging and taking hopefully the right decisions at the right times.
Nice. Interesting. Now, I have one more reason to justify a young team. Uh, how has this journey been in the last 4 to 6 weeks? Post the lockdown, how have you kept yourself learning, or how have you kept yourself busy?
I want to list down a whole lot of things that I have been doing in the last 6 weeks. Things that I would have never ever done otherwise. And I am grateful to God for those. I am not grateful I'm not happy about the fact that there is a pandemic, people have been affected, there have been death and disease. No, that is a no-no. But given that, and given the situation that you are in, you need to make sure that you you have to turn an adversity into an advantage. And that's the way to keep going. So I have looked at it from the point of view that, okay, we are home, here to protect ourselves. What is it that can we do? I could sit on a couch and watch movies all day, but that's not the point. So what is it that you're going to do to better yourself, to ameliorate yourself, So I have to say that I have immensely enjoyed my home, my terrace. I have watched the leaves sprout after the winter. I have seen the flowers bloom. I have felt the golden rays of the setting sun. And none of these I would have seen or experienced under normal circumstances. Then I have immensely enjoyed my morning and evening exercise routine. I have really upped my exercise routine. Earlier, whatever time I could spend exercising, probably I'm doing double of that. And that's only keeping my own body healthy. I have discovered several new and exciting exercise programs which I would have never done if the gym was open. I'm learning to work with limited tech knowledge. You see, what used to happen in office is that you always had somebody to do something for you, You needed something typed, you needed something done, or drawing printed, anything you wanted. There was an infrastructure that did it for you. There is no infrastructure here. You're you and yourself. So you have to learn to work within your limited knowledge and your limited resources and work out a system that still keeps you functioning. I wouldn't say as efficiently, but reasonably efficiently, Then I have attended various webinars and discussions regarding products, design, technology, and these have been hugely enlightening. I've attended lighting workshop, I've attended product presentations, I've attended a whole lot of design discussions. Now, these things, but never really had a time to do. If somebody came and said, okay, they're going to come and do a product presentation, you probably postponed it by many weeks before they could come. And then you were literally struggling to get your teams around to come and see it even in your own office.
Yep.
Because there was just this pressure and we were just running around like headless chickens, But now, I actually look forward to some of these webinars because I think they're a huge source of information and huge source of, it enlightens you. So I think that's a big thing that I've discovered. Then I've spent more time reading in the last 6 weeks than I did in the last 6 years because you never got the time. You were, as I said, running around like headless chickens. So you never got the time to do and look at, read things that really interest you, that sort of enhance you. And now I think one has managed to do that. No time is wasted in useless dinners, parties. Instead, one connects with family and friends more effectively. Uh, Unfortunately, the working hours have extended endlessly. So there is no time period. This is, let's say, the flip side of the coin. Because when you went to office, you went there, you worked, and even if it was 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, when you came home, you were home. It was your time. Now there is no your time. You are going on calls at 9 o'clock. You are attending to mails at 10 o'clock. You are, I'm going on with my team till 1 at night when we had to, So there is literally a seamless merging of me time and work time, which is nice in a way. And maybe you could criticize it, but I think you have to make the most of it. Because this way, you're fitting in your personal things the way you want to and also working the way you need to. Very important thing that I think I have realized that excess is not a measure of your true worth. Your things that you own do not define. It is your work, your focus, your achievements, and what you give to the world is what defines you. I have probably understood the true worth of my family, my father, during this lockdown, of what he did in terms of his profession for the people that he valued, which is our nation, and what he gave up. And that is what defined him. And today, I think in this lockdown, I have probably understood him far better than what I did for all these years that went by. So I think these have been my gain from the lockdown.
No, amazing. I see you doing a lot of new things as well. And so what are you reading now?
I am reading actually a lot of stuff which is, I'm not reading fiction, but I'm reading things, just generally things that are either world events, people's, different takes on events. I'm reading about World War II, I'm reading about Spanish flu, I'm reading about 100 things that I would have never read about.
Sure.
So it's not a fiction or it's not a book. It's about just various things in life. People's discussions, people's opinions, even my own father's judgments. When I was a child, they used to talk about 42nd Amendment and all the rest of it. He was very much involved. I had no clue what it was. I never even tried to find out. Today is a time when I'm trying to find out what did he talk about. Or, when my uncle talks about that brain drain, what did he talk about, So it's these things that I'm trying to read. I'm looking at old movies of Hitler because I want to see what is it that made him so charismatic. What is it that pulled people towards him? He may have been a tyrant, but there was something in him that made him where he was. He was nobody. He came from an extremely poor family, but he rose due to his own, achievements and his work. You may not, he did not go the right way, which is a different matter. But what is it that made him what he was? So, these are the kind of things that I am reading and I'm really enjoying it.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. And do you see it impacting your work in any which way?
I think it is not going to have a direct impact, but yes, there is always an impact. because there are things that stay in your mind. They stay at the back somewhere, and then whenever you're working, whenever a situation arises, it all just comes back. There is a whole recall value, and then you start applying it. That's what happens. I love traveling. I mean, whenever we travel, we go and we spend days with visiting projects. We always go to a city, and first we list down what is there to see in terms of newer projects that have happened, or even historic projects. And there is always something that stays in your mind. It's like something that impresses you, and then you come back, you pull it out when the right opportunity arises.
Sure, understand. How have your clients or other colleagues in the team, the juniors maybe, taking this lockdown? So clients as well as, let's say, junior colleagues.
Clients is very varied. Clients is there are some clients who have sort of resumed work partly.
Sure.
There are some clients who are completely under right now because of the nature of their business.
Sure.
If they are in multiplex business, or they are in a mall business, or they are in a manufacturing business, it's been extremely, extremely down. So clients are very varied, and their working is also very varied. However, there is a huge sort of a take home from this. For example, if you see, there are lots of take homes from here. Some of them temporary and some of them permanent. Because COVID, hopefully, maybe in a year, we should be out of it, if not more. There has got to be a vaccine, there has got to be a solution that we will all come to, and we will move on. However, what is important is that even when we move on, some of the learnings that we've had from this experience could very well be taken forward. We don't have to go back to our wild ways and spoil things around us. We've seen how things have changed. We've seen how things have improved in many ways, and there is no reason why we should not hold on to those. So that one of the things, our thought process is going to be altered, I feel, with this pandemic in terms of many different things. Business strategies as well as design must constantly evolve to rise up to this, these changes that are happening. We can't have, one of the few things that we are learning is that we just can't have rigid long-term strategies. Strategic planning needs to be built into our daily operations, and in order to respond to the market dynamics and new technologies. So you have to be able to keep changing with the market. Models that address flexi working and work to home could be developed further, because you see, we have all realized that not all of us have to be at office every day.
Yeah.
Whether it's a design firm, or whether it is an accounting firm or an IT firm, there is a diversity that could be built into our offices, wherein a certain percentage could always work from home at any point in time.
Right.
So that is something. So not all of us have to be at office every day. We don't have to report in at 10 o'clock and go home and spend 2 hours traveling up and 2 hours traveling down, which is what an average Delhiite does, So that is one of the things that we need to look and need to exploit further to see how we can work out a kind of a intermittent working, or some kind of a staggered working, or whatever. Then agility is a concept that needs to be explored. Smaller teams, which are more fluid in size and may vary in terms of size, network of specialist freelancers could be roped in for project basis. So, this is something which, as a work process, could be examined. And I'm not talking about only a design firm. This could be applied across most businesses, where the whole idea of big corporations owning big buildings and big offices and lots of workforce could be questioned. Yes, some of it will still have to happen, but some of it, maybe 50% of it, you could question. And I'm saying, could these teams be broken into smaller, agile teams? They they don't need to come to a particular location which is 25 kilometers away. They could operate out of a smaller location, which is maybe 2 kilometers. So to try and see, can you form smaller, agile teams? Is it workable? Maybe in some businesses it's not, but some businesses it could be. So a leaner kind of organization, and where you reduce your core strength and you rope in freelancers on a project basis, so that you don't have those huge overheads. Because I think today all of us have realized that we cannot support large overheads. None of us have the ability to support salaries beyond a month. Most businesses.
Sure.
So these are the kind of things where you start bringing down your fixed costs and start putting up your variable costs a lot more. So this is a sort of a model which a lot of businesses are going to start examining. So then people need to develop the softer skills like collaboration and critical thinking, which technology cannot do. So you start, putting things into two categories: things that technology can do and things that technology cannot do. It's like saying that in a home you can buy a robotic cleaner to clean your floors, but you can't buy a robotic cleaner to probably decide what you want to cook. So it's that kind of thing. So critical thinking cannot be replaced by technology. So restrict your working to the critical thinking, what somebody else cannot do. And of course, discard the idea of owning everything all the time. So you got to get rid of the white elephants. Concept of sharing economy. It's one of the things that I think needs to be explored and promoted a lot more. Because you see, in every office, if your office is, let's say, 50 people, at any point, even till now, you may never have more than 40 people, even at a full strength.
Yeah.
And if you are looking at smaller agile teams or partly work from home, partly coming to office, that may even come down. So you would always have, let's say, about 30% spare capacity in your office. Why are you letting it go waste? So bring in a idea of shared spaces, where the resources are shared by somebody else. And so that is something which we need to start optimizing. That is the biggest takeaway from this, that do not waste resources. Optimize and make sure that you share, you use things, you work in a way that everything is stretched and used to the max. So that is another thing. So maybe more workplaces may become co-working, organizations may optimize area capacities and get others to share workplaces. Outsourcing may become more common and leaner and smaller organizations may happen. You see, there's another smaller thing which, while I was talking once to somebody regarding this whole work from home and the whole romanticizing the work from home story, the thought was that, it's very well for people who have a good home to work out of. But what about so many people who come from smaller towns and they come to the larger city because they aspire to work in a nice environment? They aspire to go to a mall in their free time. They aspire to eat in a nice fast food when they can, and they aspire to connect with people who are around. So it's also a very social thing to come to the office, and it is a human need to socialize. So you cannot just do away with it. A lot of these people live in smaller shared accommodations which do not permit your work from home story. So, what about that? So, probably in a current scenario, you may not be able to cut down your capacities that much. You may be restricted, as I said, to about 25 or 30% and do a staggered working or something. But as a very, very long term thought, you could look at creating a whole genre of housing that supports this. It's only then both of them work in tandem can you actually look at this whole thing in a full success, you need to create a housing which addresses today what does a young person coming from a small town do? They are living as PGs. Sometimes they're sharing 3 or 4 people to a room. Um, so can we create a model where even when they're sharing the room, you have a common space to create a workspace as a model, as a small sort of a pay and play kind of a thing. I mean, I'm looking at them more as a 24/7s, It's like your neighborhood workspace. And you just walk down, you walk like maybe 20 meters or 50 meters, and you can pay and play for a day, a small nominal amount. And you work, So maybe we need to start looking at creating a whole new genre of spaces, of working, of living, in order to exploit this as an idea.
Nice. So, obviously, a lot of these changes will happen, and people and organizations tend to move fast than what we give them credit for. In April, have some of your existing clients expressed a need to revise the brief that, okay, can be built for this as well? So, are you seeing clients revising the brief, redoing it, or saying, let's build this in as well?
A little bit, I would say. I would say a lot of projects which have stalled currently are the ones who are re-examining what they could do to live with the current situation or to take the current situation successfully forward.
Right.
Talking about social distancing, when you're talking about a movie hall, how are you going to achieve that? See, they can't shut down their business because that's their mainstay. And we've all enjoyed watching movies in a movie hall as an experience.
Right.
So I think these are the kind of businesses which, or a school or a college or an education institute, these are the kind of institutes and places which will definitely be redefining a lot of the space standards or the working systems or many things. And this is all being thought out currently as we speak. A lot of other things, like when you're talking of individual homes, there may not be much change because a luxury home is a luxury home. They have everything in any case, but a hotel may think of some things. A hotel may think of creating, smaller rooms but larger spaces where people could do this pay and play story, or So there are lots of thoughts going on in different categories of building types, but I would say it's all still in a very fluid state, and people are still trying to plug in their ideas and thoughts. But I don't think there is a design solution as such for any of it so far.
Right.
It's a developing scenario.
No, absolutely. I can imagine. I'm glad to hear that there are conversations happening, which is often the first step to finalizing the brief, and it's great. Now, you were talking about how most organizations wouldn't have cash reserves to survive for more than a month or so. This would be particularly acute for smaller architects or those from smaller firms who are just about starting out, right? How do you think they could navigate this crisis and still come out with a successful practice at the end of it?
This is not a story for just the younger firms. This is the story for every firm. I mean, I don't think any architectural firm would have the reserves to really survive beyond a month, because that's how our profession works.
Okay.
So it's not any particular genre or any particular size of firm their problem. It is a universal problem, and I think you have to look at it. Take your firm as a team. You have to be together with them, share the good times and the bad times. So they need to be able to, you support them with the good times, and they need to support you with the bad times. So that's the only way, because there are really no exceptions. Everybody is in the same.
Right. A lot of these firms, in fact, I'm just looking at the audience questions, a lot of them are also asking, how do you keep your clients engaged if construction work is not happening? Or if something is stalled and nothing is happening? So how do you keep engagement and momentum and energy still around it?
You see, 2 or 3 things. One is that if your project is at a design stage, then that is something which is still in your control.
Absolutely.
And communicating with the client is very, very doable, So you explore. I mean, normally you would have done about that much work in design development. Today you're probably landing up doing that much work in design development.
Sure.
So it's just that whatever you're offering your client is a lot more from your side because of the situation.
Sure.
So that's how you sort of keep the client engaged. Of course, if your project is at a construction stage, you could examine various ways how you can, expedite the construction. You can make it more efficient. You can explore different means, different systems. You can, look at integrating different types of technology. If you are still at a shell level, you could look at whatever the possibilities for your fenestration is, for your facade systems, for your waterproofing. You can explore a lot more than what you would have done because of limited time that you had earlier. And for, I would say, the enhanced time, which is your me time that you're putting in, but that's what it is. So you can actually just contribute a lot more at every stage of the project. So instead of watching a movie, you could actually be doing some research on a wall finish or a facade system or some sort of water recycling system or any such thing, or looking at lots of different projects of happening around the world. It's all adding to your knowledge base.
Yeah. No, I see what you mean. It does allow you to focus on whatever stage you are in and give it that 150 percentage rather than 120. And yeah, absolutely. That is super interesting and great. So I think what we are going to see, and this is anybody's guess, but we are going to see a gradual opening up of construction and economy at whatever number of weeks hence. It could be 2 weeks, it could be 4, or it could be 2 months, whatever be that. So, we will always have this kind of a partial situation where some activities are allowed, some percentage of workforce is there, maybe some percentage of migrant labor has returned. How are you envisaging those scenarios and how do you intend to cope with them?
You see, some amount of, I think labor is going to be a very big problem in the construction industry, at least for the next 3 to 6 months, because of, partly labor having gone back, partly not, partly, there's been a lot of trauma for them also. And I just feel that for all those people who help us build our homes, we've really not done anything for them, when they don't have a home. So it's really an ironic situation. And skilled labor is, of course, still going to be there. I think it may be time for us to examine introduction of a lot more technology to help the construction processes. You see, we always had cheaper labor than technology, and that's what sort of kept driving things. But now is a time when we can look at a shift in attitude because of the fact that we may just not have that labor. We may have to be compelled to look at technology for certain aspects. That is number one. Number two, I think this whole idea of prefabrication could be something that we need to look at as a part of technology, technical inputs, is something that we need to look at a lot more. Um, what can be done by a factory or a machine or technology should be done by that. What cannot be done should be done by us because we think and we plan and we have skills.
Right.
So the skill work can't be replaced. The
Right.
critical thinking cannot be replaced. But a lot of other stuff can be replaced.
Sure.
So I think it's time to think of certain things also.
Right. Well, it's interesting that you're talking of technology. I mean, let me go to some of the things that is integral to the industry. Let's say going to a showroom to choose what tiles you need or what fixtures you need is a very integral part of the current buying process. Would that still be as it is or would it change?
We architects, I'll be very honest, are very lazy. So we like to do all the initial work in any case sitting in our office. And that's what we do and that's what will continue. Where we do a lot of initial shortlisting and putting together on an e-board. So whether it is stone or tiles or X material or Y material, we sort of do our initial putting together virtually. And then we call for the requisite samples. So you don't need to have the full samples because you have a picture for the full samples. You need the sample only for the color tones and the textures.
Right.
So we always go for smaller samples. So I think that is a practice which most architects have always followed. And I think it can go forward pretty much in the same way where the interaction is just limited to that final selection process rather than keep going to different places and keep walking around and keep going around because that's not the way things work anymore.
Absolutely, and it saves long traffic jams, and the time becomes more productive.
Yes.
So I remember you starting the conversation with saying that you normally shied away from product presentations, especially from sales reps, and I'm inferring it. Would that still continue? Because
now, to be honest, I have really started enjoying this because I have realized that I have missed out on so many things.
Nice.
So I think as long as the essence of the product is being conveyed, which is what is important, I think it's great to have these small capsules of product presentations because at the end of it, it is these products that we are going to use in our designs. So unless we know about it, how are we going to use it? So we need to continuously ameliorate ourselves to know more, to the more you know, the more you use, the more exposure you have. And I think it's something which all of us need to do.
Right. Very interesting. I'm just connecting the dots here. So we would be among the top 10 pages in the home improvement section in India. So obviously this message is pretty much going on to everybody in the building and construction industry. And the message from Sonali is very clear. Keep it short, keep it sweet, and send an invite at the end of it. Because you are going to get a lot of invites now.
No, I think I have enjoyed the product presentations.
Sure.
And as long as it's just the essence of the product, just the details of the product, so that I know what it is and then I know exactly what to do with it.
No, completely. I think that makes sense. I relate to that from a different profession when agencies try to fit stuff to me. So completely understand what you're saying. Yeah. I will just pause for a minute and just look at some of the questions that's coming on the web. Right, I think the predominant concern is, will the industry slow down dramatically, and what can we do about it?
Unfortunately, the industry will slow down. No, it has slowed down. And it is going to remain slow for a while. And that is the biggest sort of worry for all architects. Industry probably will not revive for the next few months, if not more. That's my reading. So I think optimizing, really pulling your socks up, and crunching your numbers and your working is going to be the key to just staying afloat. I'm not saying doing great guns. I'm just saying to survive, to just keep your head above the water. We need to really pull up our socks. We have to examine more innovative ways of what do we do to optimize. Let go of your egos, let go of your white elephants, and see what you can do. Use your resources, use your spaces, use your technology, use everything you have to the maximum. Share it with people so that more people need less.
Yeah. That's a nice way of putting it. I think it makes it that much more sustainable and not a load on the planet.
Right? Absolutely.
Yeah. What I see happening on the organization side is I see a lot of smaller companies folding over, a lot of smaller companies wanting to merge with some of the larger brands. Do you see the same thing happening with architecture firms? So in your peers, friends, do you see the smaller firms wanting to merge or wanting to become a part of larger firms or something of that kind? Consolidation?
Architecture is no longer a mom and pop profession. It is no longer the master builder story, An architect today is a person who visualizes, who conceptualizes, and then he needs a whole lot of people who are equally important to come in and make sure that a project is realized. So in any case, architecture is a very, very collaborative profession. Today, and everybody has different skill sets. I have a certain skill set, somebody else has a certain different skill set. So unless we come together, we can't actually present a nicer module, So we need to collaborate, get different skill sets together, and I learn a lot from the younger lot, and probably they learn from my experience, So unless the two are joined together, that is really the best way to go forward. So it's not that I'm a small firm and have to fold up. No. A smaller firm needs to look at an experienced firm, and experienced firm needs to look at a smaller firm, a younger firm, because they both have as much to contribute to each other. And coming together will only enhance the way forward.
Right. That's interesting. So just as Google and Apple are collaborating, we must figure out how do we get some of the smaller and the larger firms which are competing with us.
And we have to let go of our egos, because designers come with bloated egos, and we need to push them aside. It's no longer me and myself. It's us. I am part of a team, and every member of the team is equally important. And respect them for what they are, and then move forward as a team. That's the reason why the US firms always grow. You find these large firms in the US with multiple offices, and they employ I don't know how many hundreds of people. Why doesn't that happen here? Because most Indian firms are still a person centric. They are not an organization anymore, So we need to actually give up that person-centric approach and go to a organizational approach, and use people's strengths to enhance an organization and to grow an organization, and not to grow one person personally. That's what is important.
Oh, sure. I think it makes sense when the system starts delivering and not person dependent. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have an interesting question from Mangala Bhattacharji. She asks, when it's a good time to plan my home renovation, what will be a right time?
Well, home renovation could be anytime, depends what you want to do. So I think you could start thinking about it right now, because you have all the time in the world. And when the industry revives, when the shops open, maybe 6 months from now, you could take it forward. But do all the homework that you can and put all your thoughts in and decide what you want to do beforehand. So this is the time to do your thought process, to do your design, to do your these things. The physical part can come later.
Right. That's interesting. Okay, so some multiple choice questions or rapid fire as is popularly called. Which sector do you see picking up first? Residential, hospitality, education, or offices?
I think residential for sure, because people always have to live. And I think, as I was saying, that the genre of residential sector needs to really expand. Right now, we look at luxury housing, we look at affordable housing, we look at EWS housing. So we have these categories of housing.
Yeah.
But I think we need to start looking at housing for the Gen Next. We have to start looking at in a present scenario when younger people are living. Can we give them a good space to live and a good space to work? What can we do? So I think a lot more thinking needs to happen in this whole residential segment, and it needs to expand. And a lot of different models need to evolve. As a response to the pandemic, as a response to our current situation.
Yeah, it will take a fair bit of collaboration across various stakeholders in the industry to give it a shape.
Yeah.
As I think there is at times a very different approach, and in some way it's much easier when you're making a building and you have the owner that you could relate with. Oh, you like jeans, so this is what I'm going to give you. You like flowers, this is what I'll give you. It becomes so much more trickier when it's a builder or a developer, because then the customer is relatively faceless. So it becomes very challenging to design. So how do you approach this kind of situations?
A developer doesn't think of the person who's going to live in the house. Unfortunately, a developer only thinks of the bottom line.
Right.
And so the whole story works. So their entire approach is the bottom line. So what happens in a developer built housing? An apartment is always a very generic apartment. It doesn't think about utility. It doesn't think about your everyday working. It doesn't think about storage. It doesn't think about family space. It doesn't think about many things.
Sure.
They just do a generic apartment and they just need to get it off their back. So I think what is important is that as a developer, if you start giving the apartment some thought as a unit which has its own identity, that's what is important. So that's the developer. But as I was saying, the thing to do is to develop, let's say, student housing or young people housing, where you are developing smaller parts, but you're developing common spaces. These things do not exist in a developer housing, which is meant for a bottom line. This requires a very different approach. This actually requires, because the common spaces are not going to give you direct revenue, So a developer minimizes your common space and maximizes your apartment area.
Sure.
Here you need to do the other way around. So I think a different kind of thinking needs to go in to create a new genre of housing.
Yes. When hypothetically, going by what you are saying, more community spaces are more self-sufficient in a way.
Community spaces and also community spaces at different levels, It could be a community space at a small floor level, it could be a community space at a building level, it could be a community space at a block level. It requires a hierarchy of community spaces, whether they are closed, open, covered, semi-covered, whatever it may be, So that is what will start defining the quality of a housing.
Right. It's very interesting. I'm going to go back to my open-ended questions because it's so fascinating talking to you. You talked about education and how you're focusing on some common spaces. And I remember for one of your projects, if I recollect, it was Harvard University itself, where you collaborated with MCM to work. How was the experience of working with MCM, and what did they bring that other Indian firms couldn't do as well?
MCM has had a long history of working with Trinity College, and Harvard University actually is an extension of the Trinity College now. Their technical courses are going to be affiliated to the Trinity College. So MCM comes with the inherent knowledge of working with Trinity, which is their biggest value that they've added. Also, I think as a design firm, they've had some really good inputs, and we've had a very, very close working with them. In fact, we've almost worked together as a single firm, and I think that has been the biggest value add for the client, that these two firms have come together as one entity, and what we could give, they could take, and what they could give, we could, and we synthesized both the inputs into creating a product which actually has worked very well, and it has come out very, very well. So I think the biggest gainer has been the client.
I think it's also a considerable maturity on both the partners which are collaborating to really focus on client outcomes rather than I did it.
Yeah, so you cannot have personal egos. Right. You have to look at design and whatever comes, and a project. So whoever is able to contribute gainfully to the betterment of the project needs to be taken in and synthesized.
Right, fabulous. So you're obviously proud of your work. So I will give you a multiple choice question again. So what's your favorite college? Harvard University or the CEPT School of Architecture?
I have to say CEPT any day, because CEPT is a place I grew up in. CEPT is a place I found myself in, And Doshi is not only like a friend and a philosopher, he's been my mentor, he's been my guru. So first of all, I can never even dream of comparing myself with him. He is like up there, and he will always remain up there. I will always worship him, So that goes without saying. But CEPT is a place where at the age of 17, I walked into CEPT and I saw the place and I said, oh my God, this is where I have to be. And I took the form from the college, I fudged my father's signature, and I submitted it, and then went and did the entrance test, because I just knew I wanted to be there. So that's the credit I give to B.B. Doshi, that he inspired a 17-year-old by his building to study architecture in that very place.
Nice. And equally inspired a daughter of a judge to fudge his signature. So yeah. So great. I think these months will pass, and hopefully in October it will be nice and pleasant again. And unlike and maybe as usual, we will also have people burning fields, and a bit of pollution. So, assume what do you think your priorities in October and November would it be? Would it be pollution or germs?
I would first say pollution because germs is something where we are not aware. Today it is this germ, tomorrow there may be that microbe. So today's microbe requires X kind of measures, tomorrow's microbe may require some other measures. We have to deal with the microbes as they come. But pollution has been there. We know exactly what it is. So I think addressing that is going to be one of the most important things. And I think our 5 factors which have always contributed to the pollution levels could very well be addressed. I mean, what order even didn't do, what stopping construction by NGT didn't do, what all these things couldn't do. One unseen microbe has gone and done.
Sure. Yeah. So, pollution in Delhi has been fairly regular. It's almost an annual visit now. So, do you see it creeping into client briefs around NCR?
I think it is going to be there definitely again by October, November. I think the moment the bans start lifting and things start going back, I think we human beings, either we learn to be responsible, it's fine, it's great. But I think in India, we do have the problem of numbers. So, and the problem of poverty, we have many problems. So let's say in Punjab, if the farmers are being pushed to rotate their crops so fast that they don't have the time to actually take the old crop off, they just burn it. So, there are so many other factors that are playing up. So, I think things need to be looked at. This could be a time when things could be addressed, and I would say a lot of factors could be, maybe you say that fine, the cash crops and the turnover of crops have to be changed. Maybe the buying price has to change. I don't know. There's a whole lot of different issues which I am not, it's not my core competency. But there are so many other things that we could look at to alleviate these problems in our situation. We cannot take a page from a European situation because they don't have those problems.
Yeah.
So you have to really create your own pages, which I think is the time to do that now. And before it hits us again, we've been hit with one microbe. Let's not get hit with another pollution, we would just be getting out of that problem hopefully by October, November. And we don't want to be hit by another problem. So...
interestingly, so is pollution a part of any client's brief as such to you? So when you're designing, are you taking care of pollution in a way?
Of course, in fact, in all clients' briefs today, things like filters and air purification is a part and parcel of any mechanical service.
Okay.
So it's just built in terms of greens, in terms of conserving soil cover, in terms of all these things, in terms of sustainability. These things are just part and parcel of every project.
Right.
But my contention is that we, all as architects, are conscientious. We do everything that we can for our, parcels of land that we are building on. What happens to this whole public domain, which is a no man's land, where anything and everything is happening? And that's the culprit. We may make all these beautiful, sustainable environments, but what good are they if they don't translate to the public domain? So I think we all need to take great cognizance about our public domain and actually see what can be done to alleviate those problems and sort those problems out.
Interesting. You almost seem to be focusing more on the collective good. So would you, so if I were to give you a hard choice between the collective good and individual brilliance, what would you choose?
I would choose collective good anyway, any day. Because even today I say that if I didn't have to earn a living, I would dedicate my life to fixing my city. So I would do that any day. To me, that is what really excites me. It sort of, gets the juices flowing. So fine. I mean, to do a good design, a good project, I need to do that. I have to survive. I have to run a firm. I have to pay a salary. I have to take home a salary. However, doing things in the public domain is what excites me. It's what makes me feel good. And whatever I can do is less for the public domain.
Right.
I mean, I can never do enough. Let me put it that way.
Wow, that's really nice to hear. How was your experience in creating the unified bylaws for Delhi, or encouraging pedestrians to walk more in Delhi? How was it, leaving such a big impact on Delhi?
Bringing the pedestrian back on the Delhi roads has been my absolute dream, because I remember as a child, I cycled or walked to school. I cycled to the market. I cycled to my friends' homes. It was just done. I mean, you would never use the car. We were never allowed to use the car. And today, I am scared of even cycling outside my own home. So I'm just saying that why should it be that? While Delhi has so much greens, Delhi has a lot of open space, and yet the pedestrian jostles with hazardous traffic on our roads. Today, our roads have no space for the elderly, no space for the differently abled, and no space for the kids. We straight away cut out 50% of our population from using our roads effectively.
Sure.
You have to be young and agile to navigate all the traffic and all the ups and downs and broken roads and parked cars and encroachments and whatnot to get on our roads. So my idea is that what can we do? I think design can really bring in a huge change, because first of all, design can initiate behavioral change among people. Right now, there is a space. People come and occupy it the way they want it. But if a space is defined and a space says this part is for this activity, this part is for this activity, this part is for this activity, then people will perform those activities in those spaces. It's probably like the olden days where our home used to be like maybe 2 rooms and everything happened in all the rooms. But today we have a bedroom and we have a living room and we have a bathroom and we have a kitchen. So we have compartmentalized activities.
Okay.
Similarly, the same thing gets applied to the public domain. I mean, if you take, I used to live in GK2, and the market road is like a perpetually jammed road. You cannot even pass on that road anymore. So it's an impasse. So me and another friend, we said, what can we do? So when we started examining that within the parameters that existed, within the situation that existed, we found really simple solutions. It just meant that you have to create a few things that, and then of course the fact that people have to let you do it because it's the public domain, and secondly, some amount of enforcement that people actually follow those behavioral, those patterns, so that the behavior becomes a part of your life, and maybe 2 years down the line it becomes a part of how things should be. So I think in every situation in a public domain, if you study, you will find simple solutions that will enhance the quality of life.
Right. I have one more question from the audience, which is that a lot of companies had all kinds of launches planned. So, given the scenario, how should they be approaching the situation? Which is that when would be a good time to get back to business?
No, our business is happening even now. Of course, very slowly. But launches in terms of product launches or
New products.
I think new products can be launched. This is probably the best time to launch them because you have a captive audience and people are far more people are seeing product launches and webinars and listening to discussions than what you would have found otherwise.
Right.
You probably had to drive somewhere to go to a hotel, to go to a banquet hall, to sit there for a half an hour thing, so you wasted 2 hours for a half an hour. Here, you're not wasting any time. It's a 12 o'clock login, you log in at 12, 1 o'clock it finishes, you log out, So I'm just saying that this is probably the best time to launch anything new which can be virtually launched.
Sure. That's yeah. I think that's it from my side. I think it's been amazing talking to you. I would have loved to go on talking to you for another hour, but I remember we had spoken to you about keeping it short and sweet, and we will keep it that. So it's past 1, and it just shows how refreshing the chat with you was. And thank you for indulging us and revealing the personal side of you as well. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Sonali.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.